time for a little Inside Dish presented by Candy Digital. Let's get our 15 minutes with Kenny ball game. Ken Rosenthal joining us right now, right before winter meetings action gets going. So, Ken, let's actually start there. You wrote recently about the payroll situation and how TV contracts can affect the Rangers and the Guardians. So how do you see their off seasons playing out?
In Texas after what I wrote, and he admitted on the record that yes, they are in a little bit of an uncertain place because of what is going on with Bally's and the potential termination of their local TV rights deal. So they're not going to be spending another $400 million this offseason. They'll do some things to improve, but the way I understand it, they're trying to get clarity. Now, we already have seen with the Guardians, they let Cal Quantrill go essentially, well, at least in part, because of their financial situation. He was projected to make $6.6 million in arbitration. They decided that was too much. The television angle influenced that decision. So there is some things going on with regard to this. Now, there are other people in the game who say, no, these teams have plenty of money regardless. But while they do have plenty of money, all of them, if you're having an uncertain situation with $100 million of your revenue, as the Rangers are, you can certainly understand why they might be a little bit more reticent, I should say, than they normally would be.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of money. There's nobody's denying that $111 million is a lot of money, but it's also relative. Who does this affect more? The TV rights, the debacle, uncertainty, the 50, I think, what did you say, 55 million possibly for the Guardians that they made last year and 111 million. It's all relative. Who does it affect more when going to build their team?
I would say the Guardians. And certainly the Rangers are coming off a World Series title. They can count on a boost in revenue that always accompanies a championship. Teams that win do better the next year. The season tickets go up. Other things go up. It's just a good, healthy thing when you win a World Series. No one can deny that. The Guardians are not in that same position. They're also in a much smaller market than the Rangers are. So I would expect it has a more chilling effect on them than it would the Rangers.
Okay, so on the topic of money here, Ken, you wrote about Shohei Ohtani's impact in terms of money, marketing, etc., to a ball club as we're getting closer, hopefully, to figuring out where he's going to go and how much money he is going to command. Can you give us more context on what that impact is going to be like for one lucky team?
Well, it depends on the market, Scott, obviously, and certainly he'll mean different things to different places. But the gist of what I wrote is that it's not just a baseball decision with Shohei Ohtani. It's not simply saying, well, we project his WAR to be this, this, and this, and we're going to pay him accordingly. No, there's more to it. He is a cultural phenomenon of sorts. He is the biggest thing in baseball, a transcendent figure in the sport. So with that comes ancillary income from Japan, from a variety of places. Somebody mentioned to me today, a team that doesn't have a uniform patch yet, a deal for a uniform patch, you get Shohei Ohtani, suddenly that deal will look a lot better when you finally strike it. So in all of these different areas, direct-to-consumer broadcasting, that we're seemingly are going toward that model, this cat can sell subscriptions on his own. So he is that guy in terms of someone who means maybe as much to your business as he does to your baseball team. Obviously, they're intertwined. We all know that. But he, unlike your average free agent, let's just take Aaron Nola as an example. Aaron Nola, you're signing for baseball reasons. Baseball reasons almost exclusively. Shohei Ohtani, it gets a lot bigger, and that's why the money is going to be so much bigger.
Let me ask you this. It seems like both New York teams are out of discussions and talking about Ohtani. Is there a reason why? I mean, do you think that's the right move? At least what we're hearing is the Mets don't want to be part of it.
Right. Jeff Passan reported that today, and obviously he's a great reporter. I have not heard that myself. I will believe any team is out, or I will not believe any team is fully out until he signs. And that's just the nature of free agency. We get surprised all the time. Not saying Jeff is wrong by any stretch of the imagination, but things do happen. And the Mets, it's not a natural fit necessarily, but for a team that claims to be building for 2025 and beyond, it does make some sense because he will start pitching again, hopefully, in 2025. And also, as I wrote today, Steve Cohen's trying to develop this entertainment megaplex at the site of Citi Field right next to it. All of these things kind of work hand in hand, the business and the baseball. So I would imagine that they're at least exploring it or have at least explored it. Maybe they're onto other things. Maybe their sole focus is Yamamoto. They certainly want him. He certainly fits as well because of his youth with their rebuilding plans, or building plans, I should say, going forward. The Yankees, I'm not sure why they wouldn't be all out for this guy. He would be a monster in that stadium. But at the same time, they could trade for Juan Soto. They can sign another pitcher. They can do some things otherwise to address their outfield in particular that they feel or may feel is more important to them. The Yankees are an interesting operation right now. We don't know what they're going to do. It seems that they should be poised to spend and spend big. But they do have some big commitments on the books already. And Hal Steinbrenner has not been someone who has spent freely over the years. They've spent selectively. They've spent on Garrett Cole. They acquired Giancarlo Stanton. They gave Judge the big deal. Are they going to have a big offseason the way they did in 2009, 2013? Remains to be seen.
You are helping to paint the picture that I've been trying to tell everybody, so I appreciate the help. But you just said about how you could circle everything around Shohei Ohtani. You need a huge market. You have the business end of it. You need him to go to a team that has possibly, they're pretty good on pitching right now. Anybody can always use more pitching. So tell me why I'm wrong that the Blue Jays wouldn't be World Series contenders if they sign him.
You're not wrong. And
He is wrong.
that team,
Stop.
well, the one thing I'll say about that team, Todd, in support of what you're saying, they have yet to prove that they are capable of getting over the hump, so to speak. They're extremely talented, great rotation for sure, but they're kind of, as I wrote late in the season, paper tigers. So Ohtani would help them in that regard. Obviously, he's going to help any team that he joins. And, man, he'd make their rotation even better in 25, assuming he comes back without any problem. But for me, the Blue Jays make sense in a ton of ways. It's just a matter, guys, we have to keep this in mind. What does Shohei Ohtani want? That's the only thing that matters here. Because in my mind, and I wrote this today, if Ohtani says, I want Team X, a team could be the Giants, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, the Cubs, any team you can name. If he goes to that team and says, I want to play for you, do you really think they're not going to come up with the money? So it's his choice. He's going to get the money wherever he goes. It's just a matter, in my view, of where he wants to play. And that ultimately is going to drive this.
I don't mean to keep beating a dead horse here, but you both said World Series. Now, let me ask you this. If he goes to the Blue Jays, is that your team to pick to win the World Series?
No, I don't know that I would go that far. But
Thank you.
it would
He just
help
called
them.
them paper tigers.
It would help.
Well,
yeah, it would
I'm
help
just
them
saying, he
more
said they could be
competitive-
World
more
Series
competitive
bound.
for sure. Todd, I mean, I don't care what team he goes to. I'm not going to pick them to win the World Series on the basis of that. It's just too difficult to do that. So many things can happen over the course of the season. So many things can happen in September leading to the postseason. And so many things can happen in October during the postseason. Arizona Diamondbacks, who had them at this time last year? I don't think anybody did. I'm not sure how many people had the Texas Rangers. So you get Shohei Ohtani to win, yes. You get him also to elevate the aura of your brand and make your team that much bigger in the national spotlight, maybe even the world spotlight.
Okay, so Ken, let's try and clear up some rumors on Dylan Cease and the possibility of him being traded and when, because there were reports out recently like, oh, it could happen really soon. And then you put out there that you think that some of the starting pitching could go, and then Chris Getz could say, okay, who wants me? Who needs me now? So is that how you see it playing out?
Well, I reported what I heard, which is that Chris Getz is telling teams that he most likely will wait until the bigger pitching names, Yamamoto, Snell, etc., go off the board. At that point, teams' appetites will be further whetted, the ones who missed out. The ones who are interested now are still going to be there, and a number of teams need multiple starting pitchers, so it's not out of the question someone could sign Snell or Yamamoto and then trade for Cease as well. Now, That doesn't mean that he's going to do that. If a team pushes him at the winter meetings, for instance, and says, we want to do this, this, and this for Dylan Cease, it's a great deal, take it or leave it. If it's a great deal in Chris Getz's eyes, maybe he does take it. These things are always fluid. There's never a set timeline, a certain timeline. But what I reported is what I heard. What Getz is telling teams, that seems to be his preference, but a guy's preference, a GM's preference can always change.
Who of the two teams that I feel like should be in on him have the most to lose by not overpaying for Dylan Cease? Essentially moving fastest, Reds or the Orioles?
The most to lose by not getting him? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Eric?
basically, yeah. Being done with it, being nobody to dance with when all the chips have fallen and there's no Dylan Cease anymore. Who has the most to lose?
Well, Dylan Cease is in many ways the most attractive guy available in trade from a starting pitching standpoint. Why? 2 years of control. Glasnow is one, and Burns is one. It's a different scenario with those kinds of pitchers. Cease, with the 2 years of control and the second place Cy Young finish and the youth relative to other pitchers, he is the belle of the ball from a trade standpoint. As for who has the most to lose, in my view, both those teams do, because they're not going to be most likely at the top of the market for Blake Snell or Yamamoto. It's reasonable to say that. So their best chance of getting an ace-like pitcher is going the trade route, and Cease is your best option in that market. The Orioles have a ton of position players in the minor leagues, good prospects that they can move, a ton of them. They, in fact, probably should at this point try to consolidate and pair off some of those guys to get a better single player or one who is more established. The Reds are somewhat of a similar position. They're very deep in young talent as well. They have guys that they can move. So I don't know how this is going to play out, and I'm not even sure either one of those teams ultimately is going to get Dylan Cease. But what I would agree with you on, Eric, is that both those teams need him, or at least someone like him, because they're not going to be paying $150 million for Snell if that's what it takes, or $200+ million for Yamamoto if that's what it takes. That's not where they're going to be.
Last topic for me, Soto. I want to talk about the big guy here. He's been in a lot of talks. I guess the police are coming for you right now. You can hear them in the background. Hey, they're looking for info. They're looking for info. Hey, so he's been in talks with the Yankees. He's been in talk with a couple teams. What have you heard recently on him? And where do you see him likely landing?
I don't know. I do know the Padres are going to ask a lot, and they should ask a lot, but they're not going to get what they traded to Washington for Juan Soto when he had 2+ years of control versus 1 year and at a price of about $32-33 million in arbitration. So you're trading for that salary. You're taking on a lot. And of course, because he's represented by Scott Boras, you most likely are not going to sign him to an extension. Remember, he's already turned down $440 million. So here's a player that we all keep hearing about connected to the Yankees. But are there other teams that could use Juan Soto? Oh, I would suggest that there are. Chicago Cubs, Toronto Blue Jays, Seattle Mariners. I can go on and on. This is one of the premier left-handed hitters in the game. Kind of a generational player in his own way, though his defense and base running, not what it was in the past last season. I'm not sure where he's going to go. I strongly believe he is going to go. It's just a matter of when and where.
So last follow-up here, Ken, on Soto. Do you anticipate this could be one that gets done more on the near side? Like I see two angles here. One is team misses out on a Bellinger or an Ohtani, and they're like, I need a splash. I need a big-time bat in my lineup to make an impact. And the Padres maybe get a little more there. But also, San Diego has to figure out what they're doing. So they have to get that money off the books, I would assume, so they can make some ads.
Timing is always difficult to predict, Scott. As I mentioned earlier, it would seem to me that if I were the Padres, I would want Ohtani off the board and have his suitors that lost out on tilt. Teams that become increasingly more desperate might not be the right word, but motivated would be a better word once they lose out on a big player. I didn't mention the Giants with Juan Soto. I don't know that he would go in the division, especially with Bob Melvin there. It's another team that could use him. But certainly, once Ohtani goes off the board, then all of the teams that were on him, and that goes for even the ones that supposedly are no longer in the mix, they are going to pursue other avenues. And they obviously are operating in a zero-sum world. Whoever gets one player, that other team doesn't get the player. And eventually you run out of good players. So it will increase, in my view, the urgency for those teams. And the way I see it, Scott, you're right. It's best to wait if you're the Padres for Ohtani to sign. But again, if they got the right deal tomorrow, which I'm saying they will, then they would act.
Yep. Okay. Good stuff. Ken, appreciate the time. Safe travels to Nashville. And hopefully you've got the Wi-Fi running on the flight.
Yeah, hopefully. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ken. Talk to you soon. Ken Rosenthal, FT Senior Insider, with us for some Inside Dish. Brought to you by Candy Digital. Get your free MLB team packs at go.candy.com/pack. And also, Todd Father, look out for some special digital collectible highlights of your own. Not yet, but I've been told within a week we got a little special thing to show to the crowd that they're making. They're cooking up just for you. So stay tuned on that front.
Baby.
Yeah, one of ones in the digital wallet for you. Okay.
For Todd or
we'll
for
blast
both of
them
us?
out. You know what? I'll put you on that email, Kratz, because maybe we could get a little Kratz action going too.
Oh,
I'm going to write it down right now and ask for you. Okay.
They don't have any AAA. They don't have any